hamene kuti munogona here kuita forward watch party on your
on our FB.
Kazwai vateereri, tisu pano timu yenyu yanhasi tina Tete Spiwa Kachidza, Pastor Pezi, kuda kwashe Mukoma Kenny naTete Maudhi vari kutijoina manje. Ini ndinoitwa Monica kunze kweguta, ndiri kuno kuCanada, ndinonyora mabhuku uyezve ndinosangana nevamwe vemucommunity medu kuti tiedze kuramba tichitaura nyaya dzinotibata, dzinobata mhuri, dzinobata community yedu, kuti tione kuti tingabatsirikane sei. Nhasi uno tiri kutaura nyaya dzekushungurudzwa kwevanasikana. Saka ndiri kufara because zvinhu kana tikaungana tikataura nezvazvo tinobatsirana kuita maonero akasiyana. Tete Spiwe, chungamidzai vateereri venyu.
Ini ndinoitwa Mukunda Kachidza, ndinoitwa Spiwe Kachidza Mapfumo. Ndinogara kuno kuCalgary. Ndinosenza organization inonzi HIV Community Link. Ndinomanage a program inonzi Drumbeat. Ndinosenza nema-African, Caribbean and Black people to raise awareness on HIV. Ndiri munyori zvekare. Background yangu it was in broadcasting journalism. And thank you, Monica, for inviting me, because tinogara tichisenza together munyaya dzekutaura nyaya dzinotibata sevanhu vatema, nekuona kuti tingafambe mberi sei nekushare my ideas.
Mukoma Kenny.
Kazwai, ini ndinonzi Kenny Gwena, ndinogara kuno Ontario, Canada. Ndinoshanda nevachangosvika muCanada kuvabatsira nesettlement neimmigration kana vapinda muno kusvika vaita macitizens. Ndinoshanda futi nemachurch as a preacher. Ndinonyora mapoem, which is all about, thinking about life and reflecting and putting it, painting pictures in words. Ndo zvishoma zvezvinhu zvandinoita. Thank you for inviting me.
Tinotenda. Pastor Pezi.
Yeah, thank you. Ndonzi Pastor Pezi kuda kwashe, ndiri mufundisi, but background yangu ndakaita journalism, both radio and television, ndikaita neprint media. Saka vabereki vangu vakaenda kuZambia ndisati ndazvarwa, saka ndakazvarwa ikoko, but ndakadzoka kuZimbabwe kuzoita chikoro changu, ndiko ndakaita journalism yangu. Ndikadzokera kuZambia ndikanosenza neZambia National Broadcasting Corporation. Saka ndakauya manje ndakuno kundoshanda semufundisi, but ndoramba ndichinyora ma-stories ndichituma kumusha. Ndikuitawo tumabhuku twangu twandoda kuita, ndichatosanganawo nesisi Monica tonoona kuti toita sei. But saka ndinoshanda nevana vechidiki. Chechi yangu ndakatanga nevana chete, ndandine vana 53 vachirepresenta 19 different countries. Saka ndakaonawo ma-problems nema-successes anoitika different countries. Saka ndo zvanoda kungoona kuti ndingapoka 2 cents kangu kana ndiri pano paprogram. Saka muchaona kuti shona yangu inenge ichipinzocheva nebhemba nechichi, mungondibatirawo zvishoma.
Muri kuona kuti tine majournalist maviri ipo pano paprogram. Zvinova zvinhu zvinofadza chaizvo, asi pamangotaura kuti ndiri kunyora, maona kuti smile yangu yasvika. Smile yasvika kuno.
Mabhuku acho apere, ndongotanga iri ndorisiyepo.
Aiwa, zvino kana masangana nesu manje toramba tichibvunza kuti bhuku riya riri kuuya rini. Nekuti isusu vechitema tiri kutadza kutaura nyaya dzedu tega. Tiri kunyorerwa nyaya nevamwe vanhu vanenge vachinyora from their own perspective. Hamungavashore nekuti zvavari kunyora zvinhu zvavari kuona nemanzwisisiro avanenge vachiita. Saka inguva yekuti zvona isusu tikufanira kuzvinyorera tega nyaya dzedu, toedza zvekudzidzisa vana vedu through zvinhu zvakaita sei zvakanyorwa, noti zvinhu zvikanyorwa pasi even taenda tisisipo zvinosara zviripo zvichidzidzisa vanhu. Aiwa, ndatenda chaizvo. Zvaremauti, introducei, taurirai vateereri venyu kuti ndimi ani, munoita nezvei, muri kupi?
Chokwadi. Ndoitwa Maud Makoni, ndogara kuIllinois, kunonzi Naperville. Vazhinji vanongoziva kuti kuChicago, but it's 30 miles out of Chicago. Ndine vana vatatu vakabarirwa muno, vese vari 3, so vaviri ndakararama upenyu hwekumusha, ndikauya kuzorarama upenyu hwemuno. Iye zvino ndinoshanda zvangu muzvipatara umu, but kana ndisiri kuita basa rangu rezvekumabasa kwangu chaiko chaiko, ndinenge nda kushanda nevana. Ndofarira kushanda nevana vedu vekumusha nenyaya yekuti kuya kwatakaita kunoku tarasikirwa neidentity yedu zvakanyanya. Zvamamuchingotaura panapa, identity yedu yairodwa, vana vedu vanotambudzika nekusaziva kuti ndinani. Mwana wangu anonzi Mazvita Matida Makoni, nyanga dai ukasaunda unge murungu akaita sei, zita rako rinongotaura kuti hausiwo muno. Vasvika kumusha kuye vakavhura muromo, muAmerica nabvepiko yeyu. Saka kuAmerica kwacho kumba kwacho havakwane, kuno kwacho they are not quite fitting. So who are these children? So inini chinangwa changu ndechekuti vana ivava tinovabatsira sei kuti vakwane, vave vanhu vakakwana vakazara. Nokuti tisakavaunza kakunoko, tikavakireitira dambudziko iroro. Saka tinoda tivabatsire vaone kuti vanofitawo sei in this global world yatakugara. Uchinzi kumusha kuti tiri vakuZimbabwe haugoni kutaura zveikoko. Wauya kuAmerica kwacho une zita rifani mai wako vane accent. So chinangwa changu for the last several years is just to, whenever ndikasangana navo vana vane matalents vekuZimbabwe vasina matalents, vari kuda kungu vasina identity, vari kurasika, the goal is to bring them together and hopefully tigadzire this subculture. It's a subculture which we have to accept. So donzo roupenyu hwangu at the moment.
Aiwa, tinotenda. So ndiri kuteerera kudai, ndiri kuona sekuti tine vana vari kuzvarirwa kunoko, vane avowo machallenge akatokura chaizvo.
Yes.
Koita vana vedu vari kuZimbabwe, economy zviri kuitika neiyo inonzi social media yakauya, zvavari kudzidzawo nekuona nekudawo kujoinira nekudawo kufita in nepressure zvakare yekuti izvona social media inowanzotiratidza zvinhu zvisiri realistic. Ndinogona kupoda panapa, asi muri kungoona inini chete, asi story yangu yese munenge musingaizivi. Vamwe vana vanenge vachiona vobva vatoti uyu has done it, and atozviita nezvaari kutirakidza papa. Saka nesu ngatiteedzerereiwo. Ndiri kuda kuti titaure kuti tingazive here kuti ndepapi patakanorasika, edha isusu sevabereki kana kuti chii chiri kuitika. Tetesipiwe.
Inyaya ika yakakura chaizvo, because haingotanga nevana vatiri kutaura ivava, vana vedu iye zvinezvi. Inini kuona kwandinoita vabereki wavo, let me touch on vabereki wavo. They are parents who are in the G40s and 50s, like Kenny said last week. They were raised by very traditional people. Even Wangavari professional people, they had some basic values that which they own, what we call Ubuntu. You understand? And even though isusu takazozvarwawo vamwe grew up very difficult situations and very traditional homes, and some even poor, from very poor homes, but Ubuntu ikako kanga karipo, waiziva zvinhu, waigara wakataurwa kuti this you can do, that you can't do. Right? And you just knew it. No, it's not okay. Then Maud said something about this subculture. Then we moved on to a certain level. We started traveling, we started going to school, taita chikoro, taita kan kamariwo, kana kaupenyukari different from kura kwatakaita. And we felt I'm talking on a broad base, right? Started feeling like tinoda kuti vana vedu upenyu hweya ndakakura upenyu wanga wakaoma. and inini mwana wangu haitomboda kuti aite zvinhu zvakadaro zvakaoma zviya, and we thought that is the remedy. And a lot of times, I think last week you were Kenny, my second teacher, yeah. Now you got married, and the husband also the same thing. I've got a borrow the motorcade, but I'm very overweight. I sound like I'm. I just want to paint a picture of what it looks like. Overweight and $5,000, and you're looking at it and say, why is the child wearing my gold chains? And where is the mother? What does the mother think? I can't help to go back. But maybe most mothers vakakudza imi kana vana mbuya kuti awachambozviita waisisa mumutsipa mako chitori kuita chii, but we allowed. And as a result, we raised Frankensteins, and now they're coming to haunt us, and we wonder, okay, we are trying so hard, we're trying to talk to this side, but it's not happening. It's not happening because you allowed it right from the beginning. That's part of it. And there's another part of the trauma. When we're talking about some kids go through some traumatic experience, so yeah, they are raised by parents who are busy. We're busy doing all kinds of things, but not busy being parents. And as a result, the children raise themselves, or they are raised by social media. They are raised by what they see on social media, and it's so right. And is very easily changed and molded by what they are seeing. So what's modeling their behavior is what they see on television, because a lot of times parents are too busy. Let me call it that way. They're too busy making money, or maybe trying to make a living for the family, but the impact it has on children is what we are seeing now. It is manifesting itself now, and we're seeing it. But what we're doing my best, I worked so hard for these children. I bought them everything they want, and we struggled. Yes, we were doing this, but we want our children to struggle. We gave them everything, but what you gave them is exactly what we are getting now with some culture. They are their way in parents who overdid it, and or parents who didn't do it, and so they find themselves there. And social media is the one that's molding their thinking.
Pamataura apa mandifungisa rimwe group revana, I think iro rinogona kusiiwa radonha, because igroup rine vabereki vakaenda overseas vakasiya vana kumusha, ende vamwewo futi vanoita sei, vanoita overcompensate nekuti havapo kuti vaite sei kuti vachengete vana. Saka vanoramba vongotumira vongotumira mari kuti mwana ari kuchikoro ari form 6 anobata mari yekuti zvona headmaster wepachikoro paanodzidza haana mari iyoyo. Vabereka vari kufunga kuti pane relationship yaanayo nemwana because ari kumupa everything. And ndopanozoona kuti pavanozogara vese manje mubereki uya yakutadza kunzwisisa kuti izvo koindawa mwana uyu ari rude, but mari haireplace kuticha munhu mavalues. Material things hazvireplace kurakidza mwana kuti rudo runobva papi. This is how you love, this is how you give. And giving, it's not material things only. Giving, you can be giving of your time and nekunzwisisa nekudzidza mwana wacho iye achikudzidzawo. Pastor Percy.
Yeah. My angle in will be slightly different, which I appreciate Jesus Rutauro, because the foundation that we need. But also I was also looking at the biblical perspective. To work with a nation, he came up with a 3-tier blessing, like thrown out to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's very important for every culture to build its base or foundation on a 3-tier blessing, a 3-tier generational structure. Saka muchaona kuti isusu tenge ava vari kuIllinois vari kuti vana vari kukura differently because hapana 3-tier. Panofanira kuita grandfather, pozoita father, pozoita nevana, kana kuti grandparents, the parents and the children. Saka when that structure is there, that's why mukuona pamanga muchitaura zvemabhuku zvizvi, vari kutinyorera mabooks edu, vari kutinyorera kuti vati vhiringe. Unaona, vanotipa inheritance isiri yedu, but dai takatora zvinhu zvagrandparent wedu nezvababa wedu tozviisa isusu pavana tozviti izvi ndo zvedu, kana zvinhu zvatinosiyirwa behind, kana pasina grandparent namaparents vana vanenge vasina. Isusu takauya kuno kumanje, we are always starting, we are always the children who are trying to raise a new generation. Saka mwana uya kuno kuzororwa ozotanga kuita vana kuno, but there's a void here grandparent neparent. Saka this is what is killing us. Even if we tikararama kunoku, that's why maybe we need communities, because that community will be your support, will be a 3-tier. Generational wealth, it's also based on the 3-tier structure. You know, information for the culture, preservation, it's based on the 3-tier culture. Whenever Israel, up to now, they still talk about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because they know that that's where their foundation is. They can point back. It's just whatever we can point back to know, oh, these were your evil ancestors. These were your so. Saka, we've got nothing else to point to. You know, we've got no structure that we can point back to and say, okay, what generation of Zimbabweans can we compare ourselves to? Can we desire to be like? There's no one, because whoever is writing our books, they're destroying our foundation and leaving us with nowhere to stand on.
Wow, that is profound. Kuti tiri kuruza isusu tiri kuita disregard dzinde ndizvo. Tiri kuita disregard dzinde. Saka kana taita disregard dzinde riya tiri kurisiya robva midzi yacho yobva yangoora, because haina attention, haina ari kuirespecta, and then eventually pari kusara pasina chinhu. Saka hapana balance, ingori wobbly, and then kwakuchizongonotsvaga kuti zvino ndinofitira papi, kwakuchinotora zvekokoko nezvekokoko nezvekokoko, kwakuchita sei, kwakuuya nazvo pobva paita confusion. Saka tingati kudii zvino nenyaya asi ndisati ndaenda ikoko ndipe tete Maudi mukana wekupindura ipapo.
Sure, that was very powerful. Zvamataura mufundisi, even anticipate all those contributions. I think ndingangowedzera kuti in addition to that, dambudziko rekuti takabirwa language chirudzi, chinhu chinondinyadzisa kuti vana vangu havagoni kutaura chirudzi. I find it now, ndakutarisa kumashure ndoona zviro zvinhu zvinonyadzisa. How we did that, and I know I'm not alone. Vamwe marudzi ese vanofundisa vana vavo language. Translation yamuri kutaura mufundisi yekuti takaluza 3-tier, that's profound. But zvino 3-tier inetsa pakuti kana vana vangu vasingagoni kutaura nambuya, vasingakwanise kuita conversation kuti mbuya vapase on zvavanoziva, because there's no communication. That's on me. Mai vavo yazoshanya panapa ataurai nagogo, they don't know how to talk nagogo wacho. Gogo vanopasa sei wisdom semaitiro ataigara pasi mbuya vachitaura ngano. That's how we knew what to point back to what the generation before did. But takabirwa language. I've heard some people say takabvumidza kukangirwa mbeu. Mbeu is the fundamentals of our culture. Yeah. For instance, the language. For instance, respect. For instance, mapfekero chaiwo. Unoona mumwe mwana akapfeka zvokuti unoshamisika kuti mai wari kuti, but mai is also trying to fit in and compromise. Handikazomuti apfeke kunge you're struggling between opezera wa compromise. And then imwe mbeu yatakakangirwa. Our culture tichikura isu yaive nani ngati non-negotiables. Pane zvimwe zvinhu zvawasingaite, haumhoresa vanhu wakamira, vanhu vakuru vakapinda unowamhoresa mumaoko. Those were non-negotiables. But we've let all that go. Most people have. Most homes you walk in, hi, right there. That's a non-negotiable yatakachikora, because taida kuti taibatira tichitiri kungu pamusoro, in my opinion. So ndo zvandangangu zvandiri kufunga zvangu. Saka maybe kumigrata kwatakaita, impact yazvine hazvo on us nevakasara kumba ndona sekuti yakafanana, because yakatibreakira zvangataura namufundisi on both ends. Vana mai vakasiya vana, saka tatodamburirwa. Imwe generation yana mbuya yakutangira kunoku, vana wangu hawazivi generation before me, saka taka affectwa on both sides. saka maybe tikaidzosera kuti nyaya yekumashure mbichana maybe I don't know, but ndokuona kwandingangoita right now pama-non-negotiables apo.
Pakunokangirwa mbeu apo pakatooma.
Pakaoma.
Pari kureva kuti kuchinja genetics.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. And so kana magenes atochinja. Zvakureva kuti zviri kuteera zvacho zvese zvatove nemagenes ari altered.
Yeah.
Zvandipinza chando izvozvo. Koma Ken.
Nyaya yakadzama yakadzika. And I don't know kuti ndotangira papi. Zvese zvataurwa izvi ndobvumirana nazvo. It's so deep and profound. Kunzwisisa kuti the root problem yedu irimo number one language. Patakanzi Shona ina basa. I remember dropping Shona from Form 4. Ndakanzi dropa chaka subject here could drop, and my problem was not kutaura Shona. My problem was Shona ndaitaura chaizvo and Shona ndinonyora. I did not understand the ndoswera ndichi netsana neshona yechirudzi ndoitaura kudhara, and so ndakusenza ZBC chichimwe chandichaishandisa. Saka foundationally, and it's the same problem in mama subjects, subjects like math, nobody sat down with me kunduza kuti ma 0100 logarithms and things like that apply papi. It's only now that I see kuti zvinoshanda pakati. But if someone had educationally, if someone had sat down with me and told me kuti chikoro chatiri kudzidzisa ichi, this is where you're going to apply it, would have approached it differently. Then ndakadzidziswa kuti Shona yakakosha chii besides kuitaura, yakakosha chii culturally, yakakosha chii linguistically. Zvingadai zvakandibatsira stereki. Same thing when you look at dzimwe nyika dzakabudirira kupreserve zvadziri culture yadzo, places like France. Ukaenda kuFrance, you see kuti vari very strict nelanguage yavo. If you want to start a business in France, they make sure kuti they are represented in your business, in your advertisement, in your advertisements, in everything. You present yourself, semunhu ano respect language yavo, things that you don't see in our languages anymore. With Zimbabwe, we emphasize on keeping the language pure. Shona is Shona and Ndebele and other vernacular languages are the languages that are not growing because we sequestered our languages. Tikati zvairi izvozvi ndozvayatori. And yet culture yedu does not stop there. Culture yedu has been progressing and our language should be progressing as well. And the nation should be co-opting my changes iwayo so that nationally, zvinotaurwa nevanhu everyday language muma streets haina kunyanya kusiyana nelanguage inotaurwa sei paZBC inotaurwa officially, because then you have a divide there. You have the official aspect of things cannot be understood by the average person on the street. Any place you go, even in the Bible, she just spoke language yaitaurwa on the streets time yacho, and that is how they were able to break through. So it's just by I think takairasa kunyika kwedu language, because when we look at my problems at Truita kuno, my issues at Truita kuno are still limited to diaspora. My issues are limited to our experience with diaspora, but you go to Zimbabwe, what you see the same. You see the same thing. It's also Zimbabwe is Zimbabwe are still in touch ne culture. But when you look at it, it's not that different. It's not that different. Maybe they're still holding on to some things, but quite trukwi and all of that, I think can be blamed on how nationally we have approached communication. I'm not sure if I'm not complicating things at this point, but again,
Pastor Pezi, mune anything
Oh.
here chamafunga pane mapoints araiswa nevamwe
Yeah,
vesa?
for me that's the major. Mukaona manje, because if you look at the 3-tier blessing yakapiwa Abraham ka yangari Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, muchaona kuti within the promise pane the promise of the land, the promise of a nation, and the promise of a seed. But inyaya yeseed ikando manje yatinozoita, because taava Kristu, we can begin to look at the things that we can structure within our cultures, that are going to be based around Ningrini Jesu, which is the seed. But every country has to recognize that tine promise land yedu. Saka if every Zimbabwean born wherever, they always think kuti kune Zimbabwe as their land. But at the same time, kwavanenge vasvika ikoko, they must also get land. I'm only 3 minutes away from we've only got 2 daughters. They're 3 minutes away from us. So we were in the country, 15-20 minutes from Plano, which is like Dallas area. Takatenga 1.3 acres panapa, tikagara panapa. Ndikavarakidza zvinhu advantages avangaite kana vari paland yakadaro, and because it's close to the city, the values are going up. My firstborn daughter went and bought a house 3 minutes away from me. The value of our land is just going up. Saka, there are things that I teach them. Like right now, I'm telling them, kumusha kune land food, kuno kune land. Saka, if as a nation, as a people, we don't take the land, togono kurenta dzimba, togono tenga dzimba mutown, but tinofanira kuita ndo culture yevarungu. Varungu takanzwa nzi varungu vakauya kuno kuTexas vekutanga vakapiwa 600 acres for free. 600 acres for free. And iwo pavanga vachipiwa vanga vachitoziva kuti magenerations achauya ndo land yavo iyoyo. Totozoita a promise of the nation. Saka nini shona muri kunzwa ndichitaura iyoyi handina kuidzidzira kuZimbabwe, ndakaidzidzira kuZambia. Amai vaitaura mumba, amai vanga vari half South Africa half Zimbabwe. Saka pane zvimwe zvavaitaura zvekuSouth Africa zvandanje ndaingoti izvi ndezvenyu izvi. Vainditaura vakakura vachitaura Afrikaans, Xhosa, Zulu zvese. Dzimwe nguva ndikatuna radio yekuSouth Africa ndinotonzwa kuti inga munhu ari kutaura zvakadai, but ndandisingazvide izvi, ndaingofocusa on Shona. Saka ndo zvavakandidzidzisa tiri muforeign land. Iwo navo vakandidzidzisa kuti you have to get land ikoko kuZambia kwacho. You have to get land and get rooted and begin to remember kwawakabva uchitaura Chishona, but unenge uri munhu vanhu vaiti tizo mazezuru ndo zvakagura vachititaura. Saka then tikazosangana naJesu futi inenge iri added advantage, because that's the standard by which we change our communities. Saka nini kune zvimwe zvinhu zvandingaudze vana vangu kuti vachinje, but handina power yekuenforce unless kana Jesu apinda mumwoyo mavo manje, iye ndo anoenforce, because anoemphasize mastandards anenge achida. Ndo advantage yandakangoita ndaiti ndiri kumain first, kwandakatanga ndichiita mufundisi 10.5 years ndiri ikoko, ndaigara nawo every weekend tichipractice pamwe chete, tichitadha Bible pamwe chete, tichiziva kuti tiri maforeigners kunoku. We have to think about who we are, what keeps us alive. It's not the surrounding culture. Avasi varungu, because varungu vanongotitaudza chirungu, vanenge vachitoziva ivo vanoda kutibvisa kuShona yedu kuti vatitaudze chirungu. Vanoziva kuti vakagotora language yedu vatotichinja. Saka ipapo ndo patinofanira kubata, kana kuri kurevisa, kana kuri kutotanga magroups atinoti okay, vanenge vachinyora, tinonyora bhuku muchirungu, tori translate mundevele nemuShona, tori senda, torisa, there must be availabilities. Togona totanga magroups pa online anotaurira vanhu kuti Shona, just basics. Ameno kana muri Mrs. Maud munodzidzisa vana, ndiani ndakaona kuChicago ainga achidzidzisa vana kutaura Shona chichi. Is it you, right? Oh, yo.
Yes, anonzi ziva kwawakabva.
Aha.
There is a group rinonzi ziva kwawakabva,
Yeah.
and my sister who's running that group,
Oh, that's your
they
sister.
have been trying to, it's my sister in Christ.
Okay.
And he has been trying kuita zvinhu zvakafanana naizvozvo. The issue yatinorana into ndeyekuti, you see, culture yedu nereligion, sometimes tikasanyatsozvipatsanura zvakanaka, kune vamwe vanhu vanostruggle, vanofunga kuti hazvipindirane, or iyi yakaipa for this one. So sometimes ndozvo zvaita tinenge tichitaya kuti tibatsire vana kuti how do you separate. Yes, there's an element of religion, like you were saying. I believe in that identity in Christ. That's where participated in. But takatoona kuti kune rimwe generation inototambudzika kuti iyoyo religion ndo inototivhiringidza. Saka that's a different conversation again with some of these people. And imwe yacho it's because vabereki vari kutostruggle nereligion. Saka dambudziko ratinaro nderekuti culture yedu, a part of our culture inoziva musiki, inoziva Mwari, inoda kugumira ipapo, but kuti tizozvipfudza mberi kupinda mubhaibheri, then we start struggling again. Saka tine that issue yekuda kubata kuti narrative yereligion neculture yedu zvinopindirana papi. Mumwe munhu akatongotaura kuti zvekwatakabva kutofunga kuti madova anoita zvemashavi. And it's not everything that's bad about our culture.
That's true.
So ndomamwe mastruggles atiri kuona zvodiwa nenhau yekuti culture nereligion, how do we meet together? But pastor, zvamataura zveland, generational blessings, and this Bible rakati kuna Abraham unofanira kusiyira wealth to your children and your children's children.
Yes.
Tinotikangoshanda mabasa munomu tichitambira tichidya hapana generational thing iri kuitika apo. And then there's also generational cases.
Yes.
Mishabo inenge iri kuitika in this time, it's going to follow grandchildren edu zichingodzika. Saka I completely agree with you. Nenyaya yeland is very powerful.
Saka mubvunzo uyu waita mubvunzo manje pandiri kuteerera muchitaura. Tiri kutangira papi nereligion chii? Tiri kutangira papi nekuti takanga tisina here isusu Mwari kana kuti I don't know. Tiri kutangira papi? Tete Spiwe.
I'm sorry to sort of like pour water on it because I'm feeling like we are bringing in a lot of stuff, into this thing. Because initially, all these are very important social issues that we need to put the pattern one by one.
Yeah.
Because initially we wanted to talk about the girl child who is born, who is at risk of a whole lot of. I believe that was our initial conversation. And I totally understand all these issues because they are all intertwined. But maybe let's try and drive back the conversation to the girl child for today. I would think.
Yeah, for sure. Zviri kubva muculture ka zviri kuno challenge ningirikini the girl child.
That's true.
Communication.
Yeah.
Zviri challenge the girl child. So I think tika layer out ma aspects, and then we can then go back and say so kana zviri kubatwa neculture, nereligion, necommunication or language. Tinozoita sei manje kuti tigone kudzoka pakuti vana vaya tinovabatsira sei.
Yeah, but maybe. Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
But vana ava, vana ava, how did they end up like this? I think we touched on that initially, and I remember sending you something that I saw on social media about the issue here, bringing down the age of consent to 12 years old.
Yes.
And I thought that was that's a segue into our discussion here today, because that on its own, yes, consent, when they talk about children, and including boy child and girl child, but what does this look like, and what does this mean, and why are we here? Why are we here? Takakanga mbeu, like Maud said, takakanga mbeu, and we are so lost in our looking at things that matter to us as a people. Yeah, I don't know about other cultures if it's okay for them, but for us as Vanu, what's going on here? Because I mean, I read it and I was like, what? And I kept saying what until I got to the very bottom, because it was a well-written, well-written piece. Yeah, because this tiri kutamba nazvo takagara tichitwera chitamba mumastreets vanhu vachigara muparliament kudiscassa zvinhu zvakadai soka. This is our life and our future. What is it going to look like? And continue, I go back to say, okay, well, they're talking about both boy children and girl children, but a girl child is such a pianiso panyaya dzakadai so. What does that mean? Is it okay for a girl child who is 13 to have a child because I can consent? And focuswa pachipianiso pacho vanhu tiri kutaura kuti takatarisa kudai tiri kukangirwa nyimo, tiri kukangirwa mbeu, takatarisa tichiti vari muparliament vari kutaura zvinhu. And what is it going to look like for the girl child?
So the girl child, because now yakutaurika muparliament ikabva yanyorwa muma newspaper, and then it's now out there on the internet. But handifunga kuti girl child atangira ipapa kuwana challenge iyoyi. Girl child atangira from vana vari muma certain communities vanororwa vari young. Girl child ane crisis yekuti ikoko hakuna anomurepresenta, because communities acho iwayo anoti zvo ane backing yehurumende, handiti whether consciously or subconsciously, but anayo backing yacho iyoyo. Community ane vanhu vakawanda sterek zvokuti pakasvika nguva yekunovhota paya vanenge vakawanda, asi the girl child ari kuroorwa ari 12 ari 13. Hakuna hospitalization, hakuna marecords ekuti vazofa during giving childbirth nevapi. Mortality, the girl child has always had crisis iyoyi. The girl child ane crisis yekuti in some of those communities murume ari kutora vana vasikana vari under 15 ovaroora maybe vari 7 apa iye haana chekudya, haana chekuvapa. Maybe anotora 1 oenda naye kutown, osiya 6 vachigara pamusha pake. Aita zvinhu zviviri zvitatu, avaintroducer to sex, avaintroducer to motherhood, avasiya panzara, nzara yekushaya chikafu, obva aenda. But because that ningirikini demographic ningirikini yevasikana ivavo vari tucked away kumaruzevha, iyi manje yakuchitibatanidza pai pane vakuchinzi vese manje vanga vari kumaruzevha paya. This has been happening maybe for 50 years. Zvakuchinobata pane vemutown manje, yachigarirwa pasi nyaya iyi, yapinzwa muparliament. Vanhu vanga vakanyarara, vana vemachechi akaita semapostori vachienda through this, vachifa vari vadiki vasati vambosvika kana 18. It's been happening. But now zvachititarisa, zvatifesa now, because takuchida kutiti vana vedu aya vari mumauniform vanoenda kuchikoro, tinenge tinounderstanda different kuti tikatarisa mwana wekumusha ari 12, it's as if hazvifile kunga ari 12. Tatarisa wemutown manje takuona delicacy, ari delicate, arichi takurohwa nehana. This problem we've always had it. Asi ndikuda kuziva kuti azobva ashinga manje kuuya nayo ochiti now this is going to be policy yekuti vana vane 12 years old vanopiwa contraceptives. Ari musikana ari kuda kunzi aite sei. Vakomana pana ari kutaura navo here. Is there anyone looking at the boy child and looking at the implication yekuti mwana ari 12 anonzi it's okay now to have yekubvumirana kuti takurara tese panapa. Consent. Exactly. Ari 12 years old mukomana ari kunorara nemwe mwana musikana here kana kuti ari kunobatwa nemukadzi mukuru mwana ari 12, because kuvasikana ari mudiki kudaro anonobatwa nemurume mukuru. Saka iyo nyaya ndo kunyangara kwayakaita.
I think nakumboromvota I think let's back up a little bit. Yeah, I think takudzokera manje takukwanisa kunyatsa taura kuti problem iripo ndeipi. Zvataura kuti problem iyi haina kutanga nhasi is very true. Problem iyi, go back to high school. I was talking to someone just a few days ago achinudza kuti do you remember patainzi vasikana ngatisangane kumatoilets? Yeah, I remember that. Do you know kuti yanga iri nyaya yei? No. Yanga iri nyaya yekuti panenge paita mwana anenge anongwa kana kuti panenge pabviswa pamuviri and they are trying to address that pachikora. Susu vakomana hatina chatiri kuziva, tiri kungoti vasikana vaendeswa kumabathroom, nyaya dzevasikana, but hatisi kunyatsoziva kuti chii chiri kuitika, but chiri kuitika ndechekuti pane ma-issues ari kuitika pachikoro kuti either masvika pachikoro form 1 kana masvika form 1 you find kuti mwana weform 1 musikana ari kunyengwa nemukomana weform 5. That age difference yakatoti kure for that time yacho. And but and then you find kuti even before high school pane nyaya yekuti teacher vari kufarira one of the girls vati kurei kana kuti one of the girls vane muiri wati kurei. Imi muri vadiki, you just talk about it. Teacher vanofarira nhingi stereki and chichichichi, and pamwe mwana anenge achitora number 1 kuchikoro every year kuchikoro, I mean every semester, but panozonyorwa exam isina teacher mukati ndo pamunozoona kuti oh no zvakati either maybe she kind of failed zvakewo zviri random, but it looks like teacher vaimupa marks based on kumufarira kwavaita, and it happens navakomana zvese. I've spoken to so many people vanondiudza kuti ndaitodanana naticha time yakati kana ticha vaitodanana nini time yakati, hapana aimbozviziva, asi anenge ari mwana mudiki, ticha vari munhu mukuru. It happened so many times, form 1, form 2, form 3. There were teachers that I could point out nhasi chaiye kuti ticha nhingi takavamaka because vaida vana vechikoro, things like that. So culture yekuti vana vari kubatwa nevanhu vanofanira kuva protector haina kutanga nhasi. Kumachechi, you've mentioned kumachechi kuti mamwe machechi anga ine culture yekuti varume vanogona kutora vana vadiki, ende zviri pamutemo kuchechi ikoko, it's sanctioned by church doctrine. Zvichitoitika zvichingoramba zvichingoitika, but hazvisi kuoneka because zviri kuitika kumusha. Isusu kuti hatisina izvozvo kuhighfield kwandakakurira, but we had a neighbor mudhara wataiti Amabere was an older guy, vanga vari like an immigrant, but he was very friendly to kids. But what I remember was Amabere taivata Amabere for a reason. Munhu wese mwana wese aita amabere, but what would happen is amabere wakaona mwana musikana vaiti auya mabere cha mabere twana tuchitiza, but looking back unotanga unoti vana vaitobatwa kapepe namabere pane vanhu and nobody did anything. And vana ivavo kana vakomana kana vazokura vanogona kufunga kuti it's okay. That's why we have the system yaitwa, I don't know if it's still happening, yekuti uri kufamba nasisi wako kumagrosa and someone anouya achida kuedza kubata breast, and for me I wonder what's the satisfaction in that, but it's a thought process inoda kudzikisira mumwe munhu based on gender. When you go back kuchikoro, you hear boys chiti inena hanguna singanyanya kugona class, but wainzwa boys handikundwe nemusikana. So they devise a way yekumutambisira time so that vanomukunda not based on their own performance but based on the fact that she's distracted. But you see kuti ndo kuenda thought process yacho, because culture yedu inotangira vathought mafungiro ndo atirezere into practice, and then those become the building blocks of what we call. Now we have people now in people who graduated from maybe being that kind of an A-level student, form 1, the kind of a primary school teacher, the kind of a high school teacher. Now that person has more access, access to more power, as in parliament. What kind of laws do you think that person would introduce? So it's a way of thinking that has been accepted more culture made and has been taken as normal. So now now as charo now vatongozvijaira, and power is corrupting people. Dai taikwanisa kuisolate kuti kana bill raintroduced parliament, bill rakadaro rekuti 12-year-old. Yes, of course, 12-year-old vakagara vachibatwa rafu nana uncle, vachibatwa chibharo nana uncle, and boys and girls too, nana uncle nema neighbors nevanhu vavanotrust. But now pasisina that mystic yekuti maybe zvinongoitika kudzimba uko. Now people have the boldness yekuzvitora and zvokuenda nazvo kuparliament. If we could isolate kuti who introduced this bill. You remember my days, Nancy Dokora Paketwa minister. He had a certain way of thinking that we impose on the rest of the people. And I remember some of us starting a group where we just stopped Dokora. Now it wasn't based on the fact Yaguti Angar Muslim. It was based on the fact Yaguti one person is trying to impose his thought process onto the school system, and trying to change the culture of how we approach education in that way. And people made noise, and that was retracted. If we could identify who are the people that are bringing up my views like I saw, and then target those people, not in a malicious way, but target those people in a way that shows them, we see what you're doing, and we're not going to sit back and just, take it sitting down like that. I think we'll get somewhere.
I just wanted to, before I forget it, it's what bothers me really is all these things have always been happening, like Ken is saying. Zvaigara zviriko zvichiitika zvisinganyanya kutaurwa, and I would like to think that that time people had no words for it. They didn't really know what the pedophile fighter say and what it looked like. Part of it was maybe associated with our culture kind of thing, and children were abused in broad daylight. So baba mukuru vanouya vati uya tikubate mazamu, baba mukuru enda novatorera mvura. And some mothers will say, no, you don't talk like that kune mwana, right? But for a long time it was part of culture. It's okay, it's part of our culture. But right now there are so many women's groups, okay, when it's advocate for women's rights, for children's rights. And I just wonder, how much is their input into stuff like this, and stopping it before it gets out of hand. It even gets to be considered in parliament. It cannot, it should not, and we are all aware of what this means. We know what those kind of, that thought process could lead at what. And how much longer are we going to wait and even vanhu vachitaura muparliament vachidiscussa girl child as big girl children takatarisa. It bothers me. It really does bother me. And another piece is, I think the church has such a huge platform for change in our country, in our communities. The number of people who attend my all-night prayers, my churches, any events that's related, it's huge. It's huge, and really, again, I see a lot of abuse of the big girl child, small girl child, tiny little girl child. Apostle, little girl child, it's of course spiritualism is part of our life, but somehow I just have a feeling that we are letting my platforms where we should be talking about issues that affect our children as mothers. That's a powerful platform that and we just knew not do my funny my so and so like right there, like tweet at your mom. You're dead by the time you get home, because what that is your culture. I read and one of the my one, and they say why believe the same thing. Why could I do? I'm coming to and why it was not, oh my God, I'm done, right? But now I just these platforms that Rwadzano could really, it was a driving force. When I don't nursing, because amai was so and so who is a nurse, one time that's the way we just knew. This is how it works. But manane gossip zvakaitaura you just knew kuti sisi so and so wakaenda kunursing ndikatopedza sisi so and so anditi those were things that taidzidza from vanhu vatinogara navo vana mai wedu zvawaidzidza from vanana mbuya wavo and all that stuff. Church has got a very, very powerful role to play in our communities, but I just see it's gone south. Every girl goes to church because I don't track a woman and yeah, I mean, really, one might say that's not it. Let me tell you, getting married is the number one thing. A majority of people, maybe 85% of young girls who are growing up, they go to church. So I just think things here, they're quite lopsided. They are, this is clear. Information, transmit was say and my platforms that could use them and advocacy say in community things. And hence we have this kind of stuff being discussed in parliament. All grown men talking about 12-year-old. 13. Can you imagine that child at 13 at its consent to having sex with any man? What is that?
No, it doesn't. Oh, sorry, Pastor. Go ahead.
That's why when we started in maybe I didn't really hit the nail on the head. I was trying to introduce the 3-tier structure. You need people who are going to protect a structure. Because apamanje tsukutizo my grandparents ka nema parents nevana acha protect vana vava ndiani. Because manje my grandparents now are on social media these days. My parents are on social media, vana are on social media. Saka which structure are we going to use? In it panakandri ku main in the bandatizo vana vanga 53. I didn't even ask the parents what I should teach these children. Ndaiunza munhu anotaura nezvemadrugs ndomutizo okay ndoda kuti udzidzise vana the dangers of using madrugs ndo 36 you have to teach these children kuti ukabatwa papi when are you as a child supposed to know that manje apa avasisekuru there's something going wrong. The children have to be taught kuti akakubata apa unotanga kutotiza tanga tichidzidzisa vana izvozvo zvese saka zvamataura chisiza kuti machechi manje ave confused nayo. The churches are also in the same problems ekuti kuchechi ndokunotowanikawo zvakawanda ikoko ndokunototo maabuse uku vachikuisa maoko pamusoro uku vachikuisa maoko pamwe futi vanomixa zvese pamwe chete saka vana havasi kuziva manje kuti mufundisi ari kundinamatira ndofuti ari kundibata ndomusiya andibless. But once we begin to structure ourselves like apamanje, like if you're looking at the situation in Zimbabwe, how do we identify the protectors before we can look at the abusers vanenge vari mu judiciary mu parliamentary system vanenge vachiisa malaws acho. But how do we protect our children from those who are setting up the laws? So that's when we begin to identify either we target them through social media or we set structures within my communities in Zimbabwe. So you can in his underwriter like if I want to target a certain group from here, I just ask a certain parent which is okay munhu wandino trust and if I give them like $30 a month or $50 a month to supplement what they're doing, can they do this for me? Then you set up a structure. It is okay. Ndoda kuti muwane vari 20 mogara nawo pasi movadzidzisa ABCD. You're doing your part, and then that thing may grow. But right now is to have practical ways of helping vana and reaching out, sending out the message. We are noticing that even the wolves are in church now. How do we pull out those who are already deceived? Deception in church and don't know netsa zvekuti kana Jesu paakauya, he wasn't fighting the Roman government. He was fighting the Pharisees who were the structure of the church. Iye aitoti kana ada ainopreacha kuchurch but kana akuita congregation yake aenda nawo kunze achivadzidzisira kunze because aiziva kuti mhondi dzacho dzanga dziri muchechi akatizo imi mamupinde hamubude munovharira vanhu kuti vapinde muchechi saka iye akavabvisa manje saka even when we target these people we have to target every community, you know, the traditional leaders, the church leaders, the politicians, but how do we make sure that our protectors are people that we can trust, people that can set up these structures, and we begin to run with those structures.
I think Tipani mix up. I think a couple of months ago they talked about the policy consent, but something that has surfaced is an issue. They want to introduce contraceptive pills kuvana vane makore 12. So even though the policy age of consent is 18, saka mwana ari kupirwe chi mapiritsi ari 12 ndekuti aite sei mapiritsi achona ndekumuti aite sei nawo, because kana uri kupiwa contraceptive vamwe vacho anenge ari 12 vanenge vatombotanga period. So why would you want to mess up genetics yemwana by giving them something chekuti akatora long enough potentially anotadza kuzobereka kumberi uko? Anti-mount.
Sure, let me pataurwa zvinhu zvakawanda panapa and ndinoda kuti ndingoitawo macomments. I like to put things down ndozokanganwa. My expectations ambotaurwa earlier. Society has always had an expectation laid on us, the girl child. Yanga zvamataura zvese panapa zvinobvira kumashure shure. Pane yavanoti kuchirungu human giver syndrome. Tino-expectwa as women kunga tichingopa. We are supposed to give in every way, a sense of the word. Ukatoita kunge watsauka kubva ipapo society inobva yatofunga kuti wakachenjeresa kana kuti pane pawarasika nekuti waita sei hausi kuita conform to the standards of what is expected of you. And unfortunately, not many of us, including us the privileged who are sitting on this platform, probably we've not done enough to try and help. You saw a big girl watch auntie earlier. So this conversation is really fueling the patriot in me. Like here I am sitting in the United States of America with some lights and water, but kune mwana ari kupinda pataitu kuZimbabwe.
Yeah.
You know, saka ndikutofila kuti pana vanhu vakashota pano patikutotaura. We have to have, but not these conversations. Vanhu vari kumba who think like we do.
Yeah.
Vave vari part of these conversations. Then those people, tinochiona kuti isa tiri kunoka, we can't reach there and help. How can we help the positive-minded activists that maybe they want to do it, but they don't have the means? So I don't know zvangu kuti mapolisi yazvosvika papolisi vanhu vanga vari kupipisa apa. I don't know. I don't know how we got there. Like we have such a conversation of a 12-year-old andizivi, but I feel like maybe our job isusu vakuona in hindsight, like one of the speakers said, is to identify these activists and bring them into these conversations, number one. And then panoitika moral decay, ukada kutasa relationship chayo yemudzimai nemurume pakaita moral decay kuti mupamapinda mbavha papinda tsotsi nepawindow, that's a moral decay handiti. Panopedzera all things fall apart and it grows from there. Society ikaitawo moral decay, zvino rikaora iri mukanwa munonhuhwa, things happen. So we have some really rotten people within our parliament, within our society. Unfortunately, they have money and they have the means, so they can push whatever agendas they want. Saka ndinongofunga kuti vanhu vedu vari kumba, I'm sure they have desires to make things different. I'm sure they want kuti zvinhu zvichinje zvisadaro. Kuti akuisirwa 12-year-old, but kwavakagara kwacho kukambuzuma kwa havana kana chavainacho kuchitumisa kuti vangaitawo sei nazvo havakwanisi. So how can we isusu the privilege vakagona kuyambuka nyanza vakauya kuno? How do we become patriots, real patriots, and go and help in those circumstances? Door number 2. And then patarwa nyaya yechiramu, I have no idea where that came from. Yeah, na baba mkuru yanga ichara, I think they own my comments kuti varume vakuru ndokwazvakabva ikoko. Chiramu chingoregererwa. Now they are bigger people, they do bigger things. Ukaregera chivi chiri chidiki chinokura. The sin grows, there's a tendency of growing. Before ukatanga uchimborowa mukadzi, the next time watomponda, because chivi chinokura. And the poverty, kutongoshaya chaiko chaiko, kunyatso kudzika ne-issue of poverty. Vanhu vatambura kumusha. We all ran away tikayozogara kumasofa kudai, so because taitiza takuona kuti zvinhu zvinomira zvakanaka kune avo vakauya in the last 2 decades. You could see the economy coming down. but probably we were privileged enough. Abereki vangu vakatiwo mambopendi, so you know, you were able to find your way out and we escaped. But kuna vamwe vanhu vaingotambudzika even during that time. They are the same people, the majority of them. Wakasara, they don't have the means, they never got the opportunity. Saka wakasara vai vakati changamuke vanenge vachingota take advantage, that process continues. Saka mubvunzo wamusoro mangu inini, I think pana azobvunza patara nyaya advocacy kuti kumuchakuri kudiwa advocacy. How do we do it? What Toyota say? Do we just let these things go? Do we just let these... I don't know. Well, the patriot in me is crying, what? Our country yagwadamiswa to that extent. But then if you flip the coin, mwana wangu mkuru ainditaurira recently about Jeff Epstein and all these abuses, sex slavery, vasikana vari kudai. So Ari involved, and she's an advocate herself. And the details and the things she was telling me, it's just the same devil operating in two different worlds. So it's easy to sit and feel sorry for ourselves. But we've got those Jeff Epsteins in Zimbabwe. It's the same concept. The general man on the street is dollar power. But they marry, so they can do whatever. So how, in my own experience, Nirvana, empowerment, knowledge is power. Pakambotaurwa joko rechirungu ndiripo, zvikanzikana uchida I'm sure makamborinzwawo, ukaisa zvinhu mabhuku vanhu vatema havazviwani. You just put information in your book and they won't find it. I feel like maybe what we can do, this feels like eating an elephant, chayo. So one bite at a time. If each and every one of us here could pick 10, 12-year-olds in a Lotito town in the back of the beyond and say, I am going to empower these 10 girls. I'm going to see them educated because they are not empowered. If I empower 10 of mine, 10 of you, 10 of you, we can change a generation. But we need to take small bites, and small bites, you chew it really well. Don't activism yet from our perspective. Otherwise, this is a very overwhelming conversation without solution.
It is. Oh yeah.
It definitely is. But another thing is, like you said, Maud, we need to empower girl child. She needs to be empowered. But again, I find there's a gap. Person who's supposed to empower the girl child is the mother. And I see a lot of times the mothers who put my teenage child that atokura atokura wakwenda out nemasamarake atokura. What are you saying to the child? She still needs that protection because of poverty. Because of poverty, people are selling their girl child. Vakatarisa kudeso. Tai wayozotora ndishamari dzawo. Mwana wayozotora ndishamari like who? Ane motikari ndana ningi ka. Amuziwe ane mota yakadeso. That's the conversation yauri kunzwa chitika kumatownship kana kumusha chaipo zvasvika ipapo. Zvokuti girl child is ari panyanga.
Pane point yatiri kufanira kuadresa panapa. And it's a pity that some untruths are being shared, and it is not true that children aged 12 are being given contraceptives non-discriminately. An extreme has been picked. My comment just moved. Has been picked and someone is running with it.
Is the extreme? It's an extreme. The question is it a true extreme or is it a false extreme? Because if you're saying it's an extreme and you're not saying it's an entirely a false extreme, where are we going with it? It's a beginning.
It's a beginning. Vanogona kutiudzawo because nyaya iyo inyaya yekuti vana they're proposing kupa vana vane makore 12 contraceptives. I heard about it and someone had called me to a panel, a discussion. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend. Probably I would have had more facts kuti nyaya chona yakamira sei. So here we are. Where do we go? What is going on?
You know, the issue of 12-year-olds is it was just part yatakanda omuguti. It has gone to this. It's gone that far. That's not the big issue here. We are talking about girl child ari sacrifice, ari panyanga, ari pangwaya kaomarara. Okay, if that person will feel better, we're going to put the issue of the 12-year child at his allowed to take them aside, so that we do not annoy anybody, so that we progress with the conversation of the girl child who is at 12-year-old aside. But is it true that girl children, my speakers, SAI, they were all pointed out to the given my examples of how a very precarious life to live these children. Is it true or is it not, to the person who has sent that question? It's true. Is there a reason why we should sit down and talk about where we're going with the girl child? Is it a concern? Yes, it is. Is it true, both rural areas and in the city or anywhere else, a girl child between 12 and 18 and going older, are they all living a life which is of concern to us? Yes, it is. So therefore, there's an issue here. Let's talk about it. Let's put your issue aside, your girl child aside. That bothers them. Let's talk about the girl child and where they're going and what role are we playing as a community, as communities, to try and shape this thing, which is this normalcy of some sort. I don't know how. Because we don't want to divert. It important.
It needs to be addressed, but I felt it was important that we mentioned so that we are clear. I remember when we were growing up, in the city of Harare, in town or any other city, you would find vanhu vari kupema, and it was maybe vakaremara or mapofu. But izvozvi uri kuwana vana vari under 15 akabata kamwana kake kacheche karusvava ari kupema mutown. Baba vacho vari kupi? Maparents emwana yeye akagara muna Sambura Mashel muya ari achipema aine kainfant kari kukambairawo imomomo. Society yedu tiri kudhiraivha motikari tichikura tichienda, hapana ari kumira kuvhunza kuti zviri kufamba sei. I remember pandakapedza university takaita research neUniversity of Zimbabwe yanga iri youth sexuality and reproductive health. It was because vanhu vanga vachiri trying to work out kuti kuri kuenda zvinhu, and that's 20 years ago. Vakaona kuti kuri kuenda zvinhu kuri kunoshata. Saka what happened? Because kana iri 20 years ago zvazvatanga kuti tiri kutarisa youth sexuality reproductive health, tanga tiri kuona kuti our society iri in danger. The girl child is in danger. The boy child are in danger as well, because ari kubatawo futi sexually transmitted diseases. And so zvakureva kuti zvona as the generation zvayakaita triangle kudai, base yacho yese iri yakapfukutwa. Saka toita sei kuti zvipfukuto izvi zviti zviise mushonga, zvipfukuto zvife, mbeu isati yapera yese? Because kana mbeu iyoyo iri so damaged, zviri kureva izvo kuti 50 years from now tikuda kuti tiimagine kuti anenge ari maZimbabweans akaita sei.
We have to start by acknowledging we're the problem. We have to start by acknowledging there's a problem, because if we keep going and we keep rolling, we are just keeping rolling, and it's just multiplying and getting worse. And the virus, the virus actually is kuzomira. But can I deny it? It's not trying to find it. It's quite fundamental. Raising, the farming children is serious stuff. It's not something you just kind of do and go to Achere Aita. And we can't afford to do that. Recognition is a problem. And I'm sorry, as long as somebody's taking this, running away with the Indian, we are missing the point here.
I know our conversation is focused on our society, the girl child Arukumba. We have the girl child here as well, who is Zimbabwe as well. Because when we are looking at Zimbabwe, until saying 50 years from now, we're not just looking at Zimbabwe. We also have Zimbabwe that we have here, which is probably the majority of our viewers who are questions. So it's probably important for us to have the dialogue. Yakabatana kuti Zimbabwe, it's one big giant thing. Zimbabwe iri youth tine chance here ekuti izive kuti kumushande kupi. Maybe ndo vangatoita louder voices in advocacy and advocating. Kuda pamwe isusu tauya munomu taita fitini zvakuda kunetsa futi. Pamwe maybe this generation iri kunoku iyi tikaibata iyoyo pamwe ndo ingadzokere kumusha, because at some point they also feel the heat. Kana mungaona paunosvika kumacolleges vakazvarwa munoma, they start to find out kuti ndinani uwe ndakabva kupi. Vodzoka kufreshman college vana vangu vakuridza mutukudzi, wakuridza na Simon Chimbetu, and I'm like so there's an element of looking for identity for vana vari kunoko, and I wonder if that's the group, that's my point, that might be able to advocate for our country if we did it right. Because yes, but our reach is probably an overreach. But maybe tine weapon kuno kwatakagara kuno, I don't know. This is just something Jangoya Musoromango as we are talking. Can we take advantage of that resource in advocating for those people? I don't know.
Just years ago, okay. Years ago, we had a similar conversation. US, I think Pastor Pez, you were there. Sister Monica, you were there. Kids had a chance to talk about how they feel being here. Varma Zimbabweans growing up in the States, growing up in Canada. And what I got from my own daughter was that I feel like an anomaly. I feel like identity innonates, because you know that you're a Zimbabwean, but you're living in a place where you also want to fit in. You're trying to fit in, but you know your race comes into play, your background comes into play, your last name comes into play, things like that. And my daughter has an English first name. There are kids also who are disenfranchised because of lengthy Shona names in a foreign country. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying that sometimes we punish Kwatakava and we punish whatever we didn't like growing up by making changes that reflect on our kids, but that also creates a challenge for them. Okay, so the kids that are here are trying to fit in, they're trying to get out of the spotlight, they're trying to be like everybody else who is here. Kuchkoro, that is, when they come home, they also try to fit in because the parents have their own expectations. Urim Zimbabwean, Totara, Shona, and stuff like that, which is okay, which is perfectly fine. But okay, there was another kid I went to Zimbabwe. I was expecting with Zimbabwe I would have a very great experience, like many of us would. But I realized, and I told more isolated there than I was over here because of people who can watch America. One of my ideas are about America. Unotaura Shona here, wakati endotaura Shona, vantangotaura niwe nechirungu. So all that. So there's a whole lot going on that we haven't captured. And my proposal is, we need to grow this panel to something bigger than just us. It's just maybe to my 30s, 40s. I think I lost. Okay. Where are
going to be your grandmother? So let's be nice now, Kenny.
Yeah. Okay, okay, so where are the 20-year-olds?
Yes.
Where are the 30-year-olds? And I talk to a lot of 30 people in their 30s, and I realize I'm in my 40s, and the conversation is different. It's very different. And my 20s, not so. I have a few kids when we're in my 20s. Though the way they address me, the way they talk to me is totally different than the way I talked to one, the way I interact in Madara Makuru Kwandiri. I'm not as free to Madara Makuru Kwandiri as they are to me, because when I look at Madara to Kure Kwandiri, I just see that war veteran kind of approach. You have the problems, we have the solutions. auna chaunotiudza ndikakuudza kuti we're going to do this. If I propose something, just be sure that you're just the vehicle through which that is going to be implemented. But ndakatonyora constitution kudhara, ndakatonyora zvese zvinofanira kuitwa, iwewe you just have to agree to it. So when when older people approach vanhu vezera redu isusu, that is their approach. Isusu, when we approach my issues evanhu ari kuaffecta vana vadiki kwatiri, we run the risk of falling into that same trap. So the question is, where are they? Where are the people that we are talking about? It is important to get them to come here so that we hear their story, we hear the narrative, and we hear their challenges straight from the horse's mouth. And we also hear solutions from them to the story from their tender forward. There's a girl, Ariko Zimbabwe, who has been talking about the issues that have been happening constitution-wise and stuff like that, and she's had Iranians. But I look at a person like that and I say, those are the people that we need to be engaging. Those are the people that, because they have their own following and they represent a lot that we cannot capture on our own.
Exactly.
Just to add on, that Zimbabweans living Zimbabwe predates in Ingrini kuma 60s. A lot of Zimbabweans left Zimbabwe, but recently, mind you, we're looking at places like South Africa where an estimated of 5 million foreigners in South Africa. 1 million of those foreigners are Zimbabweans, and South Africa has got the worst record in terms of the girl child. That they believe that they can cure AIDS through the men sleeping with the children, the girl child. There are many issues that for many, many years, up until now, the girl child has been disadvantaged. And we're saying, as long as we keep talking, as long as we keep raising the issues, we have the statistics, we have everything. I concur with my suggestions are, how do we start? We have to alert all the Zimbabweans, in the UK, in South Africa, in Southern Africa. This is what we want to do. But on the ground, like in Zimbabwe, we've got to, even if we just approach like 10, it's just 5 panap. If we can target maybe 10 chetevana in a certain area, and we find an adult that can take care of those 10, even if they say, okay, we say we'll give you $100 out of the 5 of us, $100 just for you to start the ball rolling. And then we can have a reference to say, Isusu 35 panap. We agreed we are taking care of these 10, but the number is not 10. There are many other children. If we can start, I believe in starting something, and then we can show and say, these are the ones we are giving them. But the ones we are showing have to be pulled out from the streets. Like if we can have an example where children were followed up from the street and brought out of the street and put somewhere where we can say, okay, Amai Muripanapa, take care of these 10 children. We're going to be sending you enough money for the whole month. Kurima packages are not thing why I don't know badaravan to tank octaravan. Okay, school fees to doubt wana in them chkoro. But have this upper street, they've got that story. We can reference them and say, our 10, they were on the streets, we brought them here, this is what we're doing. But what about all of you other Zimbabweans who are out there? How can you help in making this thing an impactful move that we can do from the diaspora? And then we can also challenge the government and say, look, this is what we're doing, because we've seen that we have talked too much. Unless we get to a point where we can actually, do something, this thing will never change.
I say, in our group, Auntie Monica, we have several girls who are with us my projects kumusha. I'm talking 12 doing better than I am as a mom.
Okay.
Right now, she supported the soccer team. Kumbau, akatenga my uniform, akadina. They're doing better than we are. So those children need to be rounded up. I'm sure Mimi Tikachaga out Pane Zeri, Manaruku diaspora who's reaching out, never could be a porridge. And indeed donated, I want to send porridge to this particular place. Mungo sama $20. The Kayabana Panikati even do that 2020 from all of you. This kid is trying to feed 100 from show. Think it an impact, education, whatever we're trying to do. But I can tell you, we've got 5 girls ane nherera dzaanochengeta. She's only 18, 19 years old. She's been taking care of nherera since she was 17. I've never done that besides nherera dzokumusha kwangu. But this kid is reaching out beyond the borders of her own home. And then there's another one who is doing, I think she's supposed like a school or something like that. So there are kids diaspora who are doing things, but maybe all this platform in makuru, like we said earlier. So bring them on. Let's capture on their light. What is it that is driving an 18-year-old America, Canada, UK? What is driving that kid to want to say, we don't have that. We have the power to talk because we've got the voices and the ability. But there's a little kid who's doing beyond that. If we give those kids a name, I'll send it to you, Auntie Monica. It's like a WHO program or something like that. You can identify. And I don't know how these kids got involved. So now they are on this platform where they are being voted for. So let's support voice. Support Doma advocates because the Chirimava room Chakasana Nichirimati. This is what you comfortable. And in Yare so I don't care. But my children care. I don't care about my funny hair. My kids care. I don't care about my ashy skin. But my children care. They need to identify with something, and if Kanakuru identify Nokumusha Kwao is what's going to help them. Let's bring them on, let's give them the voice and give them the microphone and empower those girls and those boys as well.
It would be great, Monica, if you can get maybe next time to get 5 more people to join us from Zimbabwe. And I know some of the great and talk just like Maud and me and Ken and you know, they are there to get them involved so that it don't sound like we are being prescriptive about this thing. You need to do like this, like this. Would like for them to chime in as well, yeah. But with the children themselves, it would be fantastic. It would be great.
Yes, I think this was great that we have started the conversation because without starting it, we wouldn't know where to go next. But now we've had quite a few good points which have been raised. Some of them have been raised by our listeners, which we are going to pay more attention to and make sure that we come up with next time. So this is part 1. Part 2, we are going to have children from here and children from Zimbabwe and other people on the panel and make sure that we have a conversation where we are also asking them about the challenges that they're facing, what they think should be done. And we're not talking about them, but we are talking and discussing with them so that also we understand where they're coming from and we come together and bring solutions. So before we come to a close, I'm going to give each person a couple of minutes to round up or to conclude, starting with Auntie Maud.
Right. First of all, thank you very much for this platform. I really appreciate. So my takeaways here is we are all good people with good intentions who are trying to eat an elephant. And we see the elephant in the house, we wanna, and chatruda kuita zvatirungoita izvozvizvi kuisa musoro yedu pamwe chete. And tisakanganwe kuti imba isina Jesu haina mufaro. Whatever we do, we have to make sure to introduce the freedom that comes in belonging to Christ. Freedom, haina mbadaro, haina munhu anoikunda. And as long as we keep that at the center of what we are doing, I think we can go very far. I don't think it was God's intention kuti nyika yedu yeZimbabwe igwadame to the point that we are right now. I don't believe that. I think a lot of it is our own making because of money and whatever. We don't have to dwell on that. But what we need is to soldier on with solutions. And how can we move our country from Patiri Panapa? How do we keep that patriotism fight in us? Tisakangane kwatakabva.
Well, I appreciate Kamkana Kekuya Tichitawa. And in talking, sometimes we offend people. And, frankly, in Inangu, and that beyond the point here, which can offend a man, because it does not help us. Sorry. when bad things are happening, takatarisa. We need the courage to make my mistakes but thinking about things, talking about things, and finding solutions. Hakuna mna ne solution kupfuura vamwe vese. And by getting together like this, we're not saying that we have the solutions. What we're saying is, if we come together and we talk about issues, we can name the elephant, we can identify kuti nzou yacho ndeipi, and how do we tackle this elephant. Right now, prior to, I know there's a lot of effort being made, but if it's not coordinated, if we're not doing what we're doing, tinakaita kunge vanhu vasingaone who are trying to define an elephant. Akabata muskoti, inyoka, nzou inyoka. Akabata gumboti, nzou ndazoibata, nzou muti, and so on. But as we continue to talk like this, we can identify kuti nzou yakaita nzou yacho yakaita sei, and iri pairi kuti affecta in what ways.
Thank you. Tetespiwe.
And thanks a lot for getting me to be part of this platform and discussing these issues. They're of great interest to me, and you know me as me, Monica, and things that matter. These things matter to me, and I know they matter to a lot of people like myself, mothers, and Zimbabweans. Again, it's important to always remember, it can't be about us without us. We can't talk about these things without getting the children involved in it, because we need to hear their perspectives, how they look at it. It might not look like what we want to hear, but we need to glean from conversations with them so that we know which way we're going. They might come here and say, you know what, it's my body, I'm making money, I'm 22, and I drive a fancy car, and I don't know about what you're talking about. But I think we need to get them involved. But again, I've always been talked about this platform here, advocacy, particularly for women. The biggest and easiest way to get in touch with them is my churches. My churches, yes, salvation is there, but we also can use them to make changes, to make a change in our communities as mothers and as people who get together, and we need to talk about this and acknowledge that we have a problem. As long as we do not acknowledge there's a problem, we need to sit down and say, where are we going as a people? That acknowledgement is the beginning of it, and getting them involved. It's important. And also thanks for bringing in men who open-minded. Yeah, open-minded, because sometimes nobody's got my permanent, and the next time firefighting, totally annoyed them. What kind of thinking is this? But it's good to be able to talk to Nevanuga, which is share information at the same wavelength. Let's look at it more in civil.
This is the second time you're much taura.
Yeah.
I don't lie, I mean it.
Amen. Yeah, I think this is it's a great start. It's a great start.
Pastor Pesi.
Yeah, I think this is a great start. Tatanga Moshe, and it's not going to be a walk in the park. We have to really push whatever we need to get out of. If we want to change things, it's not easy. But one thing we know, when I hear, even Jesus was the greatest advocate of people. He advocated. He spoke when it was supposed to be spoken. He pushed where it was supposed to be pushed. And so there are things that we may start very small, but we are going to recruit and make sure that this message is carried across. This message has been, the issue we have right now has been, we needed to solve this thing a long time ago, but it looks like there are people who want it to stay because there are many advantages people have in our communities by abusing the girl child. So if we can begin to expose these lies, I think we're already on the right track. The mindset is the right one right here, and we are not here to argue. We are here just to gather, more information so that we can go and use it out there where it's needed to be used. And thank you so much for thinking about me. Yeah.
Ndinotenda chaizvo. Panel yedu izwi rechishona rekuti amazing ichizviya.
Rinoshamisa.
Rinoshamisa.
Oh yeah, ndagoroshoda paka.
Vachigona aiwa tinotenda because zvataita nhasi kuti tikwanise kuwana mamwe mapoints nezvimwe zvinhu zvatinenge tisina kufunga kuya paplatform yakaita saiyoyi, so that vamwe vanhu vanenge vachitarisa vanewo maonero avo, vanewo zvavakasangana nazvo, vane iyoyo contribution iyoyo ndio inotipa content, inotipa material yekuti zvona ndo mamiriro akaita zvinhu. Isusu tasvika tikakudubura gaba, tikuona kuti mukati it's a can of worms. Saka mucan of worms umu manje toita sei? Tokudibira tosiya zvakadaro here kana kuti toona kuti tadira ningirikini acid tiuraye makonye ese aya, gaba redu sare rakachena, so that rinoenda macontents ari clean. Saka tine basa rekuita ino yataita nhasi ningirikini episode 1. Iyi nyaya haisi kungotaura mubva tangoisiya yakadaro. Inogona kutoita episode anosvika ku10 nekuti iri kubata the very core of who we are. Iri kubata chinotiita vanhu isusu. Iri kubata chinhu chichaita kuti parambe pane continuation yegenerations to come. Saka tiri kufanira kuramba tichiita sei, tichitaura nezvayo kusvikira zvinhu zvedu zvanaka. Tinotenda vateereri vanga vachitiona, and tinodayira kuti hopefully next time tinenge tanewo futi more people papanel pedu tichienda mberi nediscussion iyi kuti tibatsire vana both vari kuno nevari kuZimbabwe, nekuti futi isu vabereki vacho tibatsirikane, because kana vana vari mumacrisis zvikureva kuti vabereki vari mumacrisis. Hatisi kuda kuti vabereki nenyaya yenhamo vakuita pimpi vana. Ndatenda hangu.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tinotenda.